Okay, here is probably a great place to pause to talk about what fuzz actually is compared to overdrive and distortion. First up, overdrive. Overdrive comes from turning your amp up as loud as it can go, forcing the vacuum tubes and speaker cone to attempt to handle an overdriven signal. Modern pedals labeled as overdrive are attempting to mimic the sound of an overloaded tube amp without the noise complaints. Overdrive is very dynamic. It responds to your touch. Play soft, and you'll hardly notice the grit, but dig in, and your signal begins to break up. Overdrive is soft clipping. Soft clipping looks like this, opposed to hard clipping, which looks like this. It does not snip off the extremes in a harsh way. Soft clipping keeps the wave smooth. Hard clipping causes jagged edges. An overdrive pedal basically says to your amp, Okay, guy. I like the sound you got, but I'm here to push you to work a little harder. You mostly hear overdrive used today in blues, rock, and country. Any guitarist who wants gain boost and a bit of color without the buzzsaw distortion sound. Synonyms include overload, overwork, inundated, and exploit. Now, distortion. Think of it kind of like this. Overdrive happens within tubes and cone speakers, whereas distortion happens in circuits, which isn't really true, but hey, I'm trying here, alright? It helps you understand, trust me. Distortion has an agenda of its own. It takes over the sound completely, even when you play soft. Now, distortion is hard clipping. It quite literally snips off the extremes of an audio wave, producing an almost square wave, flat on the top, but still smooth between. A distortion pedal basically says to your amp, hey, listen up, face. I hear what you're trying to do, but I can do it better. When you ask me to get involved, it's just me. You mostly hear distortion used in metal, grunge, big hair rock, and Vans Warped Tour. Synonyms include harm, damage, warp, deformation, aberration, contortion, gnarl, straining, and torture. Finally, fuzz. Although distortion pedals talk mad shit on your amp evidently, fuzz pedals make distortion pedals look like little one-trick pony A fuzz pedal walks into jail, picks the biggest, baddest motherfucker he could find, and slaps him into obscurity. Then walks in the warden's office, talks him into giving him his job. And his wife. Fuzz pedals clip your signal extremely hard. Different fuzzes produce different waves, but you often see square waves, spiked waves, folded waves, and whatever the f this is. Fuzz makes your amp sound broken. Fuzz heavily saturates your tone and makes it feel woolly, fuzzy, radioactive, explosive. Whereas overdrive is very reactive to your playing, and distortion is very predictably not reactive. Fuzz is very unpredictable, yet responds to your touch. In my opinion, it's the perfect mix. If you crank your guitar's volume knob and strum hard, you get lush, warm, hard clip distortion. If you play soft, even at full volume, it reacts dynamically. It definitely doesn't sound clean, but not full haywire meltdown. Now, if you turn down your guitar's volume knob, most fuzzes will clean up stupendously, and you get a nice, colorful, soft clip drive. It's honestly mind-blowing and fun as f. Some fuzz circuits can even sound different every time you go to play them, which also is fun as f. Fuzz is like an opinionated, moody roommate that is predictably unpredictable. Fuzz usually works best for single-note riffs, but when you decide to bust out a power chord, the amount of power that comes out of the amp is astonishing. Think The Stooges' 1969 song, I Wanna Be Your Dog. Fuzz is like if you could turn your amp up to 15, push past this maximum into completely unnatural territory. Fuzz basically says to your amp,
hey, face, I don't give a about you and your sounds. When I get involved, I'm gonna do whatever the I want, and I don't care about what any of y'all think about it.
Fuzz reminds me of chemicals bubbling out of a volcanic geyser. You mostly hear fuzz used in psych rock, post-punk, and alt blues. Synonyms include and now let me give you some esoteric metaphors. They make sense to me, and if they don't make sense to you, that's fine. You can think of overdrive as a warm glowing lantern. You can think of distortion as a lamp that's on fire. you can think of fuzz as a lamp powered by nuclear energy. Another tri-metaphor, this time using the 3 kinds of heat exchanges. Overdrive is convection, distortion, conduction, and fuzz is radiation. Convection, just like overdrive, seems more spacious and indirectly warm, yet glowing. It doesn't really destroy too much in a short amount of time. Conduction, like distortion, is pressing a hot iron directly to wood. It leaves it singed and different than it was before, even though they only touch for a few seconds. Now radiation, like fuzz, is something very similar yet very different. The sun radiates the earth, warming it up and causing all sorts of unexpected things. Just as fuzz can cause overdrive and distortion, radiation can cause convection and conduction. The sun's heat causes the convection currents in the atmosphere, and it also causes blacktop to become too hot to the touch, aka conduction. None of this makes sense, but that's the point! Fuzz doesn't make sense! It defies your logic and substitutes its own. Fuzz often sounds glitchy, as if a nuclear reactor is melting down. Again, pretty out there metaphors I just threw at you, but hey, it's worth chewing on, right? If you look anywhere online, you'll get some modern definitions of what makes fuzz, overdrive, and distortion pedals different. You won't really leave knowing the true difference in feeling that each causes within the player, and that's what matters. How the effect alters the way a guitarist approaches his touch, his notes, everything. Try metaphor number 3. This time, what an amp would esoterically look like for each if you had magic goggles. Overdrive, you can picture an amp that is glowing a warm orange yellow in a cigarette basement next to a wood grain speaker and a pool table decorated with tweed. Someone's in the corner with a bottle of SoCo in one hand and Jack Danny in the other. Distortion, picture an amp that's engulfed in dark red flames, like some madman is standing next to the amp, constantly branding it with a hot poker. Everything else in the room is jet black. Everything is dirty, dingy, dim, and soaked with cheap beer. In the corner, the devil himself is politely conversing with Tenacious D. Fuzz, picture an amp that's glowing radioactive green. The sound coming out is destroying itself, splitting in half, spitting acid in your face, growling, howling, and scowling. In one corner, someone is power sawing wood. In the other corner, someone is writing lovely prose about the plight of man. The room is on fire, but the fire is blue or purple or green or some all sorts of freaky is going on, right? It's some Night King frozen fire type. Got it? But to me, fuzz means something greater. It's pushing past the limit. It's a tool to toy with the unexpected consequences of injecting an incomprehensible energy into a sound, into society, all at the tip of your calloused, non-dominant fingers. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it.